Hello, hello, and good afternoon. Hello, Mama Bear. How are you today? Excuse me. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is. How are you today?
Good. It's better than yesterday.
That's good to hear. Hope you're having a good day. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Welcome, everybody else that's here. Thank you guys for joining us today. Appreciate you very much. Again, another cold case, coffee in a cold case. I never say it right. Today, guys, we're looking into. I'm running back-to-back shows today. We're looking into the. Let's try this one more time. Oklahoma Girl Scout murders, which is a pretty wild and just very sad situation, and then possibly the Adam Johnson disappearance and dismemberment, another murder situation that's unsolved. Both of these. I believe the Girl Scout murders, they looked into it as, thinking they had somebody for it and it didn't pan out. I'll let the story tell it to you. And then after that, very shortly after we end this won't be very long. We're going to roll into the University of Idaho 4. We're going to talk about all that stuff because there's a lot to talk about now. And I've had a lot of people asking about it. So that's what we're doing this afternoon. It'll be back to back. So if you're here for it, I'll be glad to have you here. I hope you're all having a great day so far. I hope everybody had a great night. Thank you guys so much for joining us. 13 people in the house, 9 likes. I appreciate you guys so very much. You guys are amazing people. Thank you so much for being here, supporting the channel, supporting myself and Mama Bear. We do appreciate. And guys, if you will, please, you did it right off the bat. You're getting good at that now, I see. 1 second, everyone. 1 second. There it is. As per every time we do this, guys, I would really appreciate you guys if you could jump on over, hit this link right here, and say hello to Mama Bear and her side there. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, hit the notification bell, and please share it out if you would, please and thank you. Let's see here who we have. Chris is in the house. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you. Of course, Sassy Cassie. Hello and welcome. Tomboy Charm, welcome to you. It's funny you said that. I actually was looking into that. It's another one we're going to be covering soon is the Martin family. Yes. They got some kind of, they have an update where they possibly have been located vehicle and stuff like that. There's a new update with that one. So we're going to be looking into that too. One of these days here. Miss Cassie. Peggy Bradenball, welcome back to you. Butterfly Kisses. We're going to be getting to something with her here in just a moment, guys. Welcome to you, Butterfly. I know today's a very hard day for you. I appreciate you being here and joining us today.
Hey,
Stormy,
Butterfly.
welcome back, Miss Stormy. Good to see you. Crime Mobsters in the house today. Thank you for joining us. Lacey Perry, welcome to you. Both newer faces. Wonderful to see you guys. The last 24, Mikey's in the house. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you all so very much. 17 people in the house. 11 likes, guys. We're getting there. You guys are amazing. I appreciate it so very much. Brady B, the OG's in the house. SRBBBB, good to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you all here. Again, guys, please make sure to click also Mama Bear's link. Jump over there, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't. Notification bell. You don't want to miss nothing so we can get Mama Bear's channel where it should be. It should have been there a long time ago, but we'll get it there. That's a fact. I think I got everybody here. Guys, I want to ask today, if we can, as we do within this community, this is a very, very supportive and caring community. Very proud of that and all of you. Butterfly, she's a little newer, but she's still a part of this community. She's been here for a while. And again, as we do with everybody, we try to lift each other up, support each other through our hard times, so on and so forth. And today's a very hard day for Butterfly. Okay, she lost a child, and today is the anniversary of that. It's been a while. Welcome, Jason Smith. Good to see you. Paula Fitzhenry, welcome to you. And I swear they have radar on me. As we all know, that's a very hard thing to go through. And so her being here with us today, she did make a bit of a request because she loves the community here and knows that we would support her within that. You know, a lot of people don't like to be alone on days like this, so on and so forth. So, like I said, today is the anniversary of her losing her child. Very, very rough day, and she's here with us, so we will support her with that, guys. And if we can, if they're in there, if everybody would, in support of that, flood the chat with purple hearts and butterflies. That's kind of a request that she had a while back. She had mentioned to me, so I would really appreciate that if we can do that, you guys. It would help her through it. It would give her that comfort feeling and know that help her to feel that she's not alone, guys. I would really appreciate all of that, and maybe say a little prayer for her and her family today to help her get through the whole day. Just know, Butterfly, that we do love you. We appreciate you being here. We know what it's like to feel alone when it's a horrible time like this, and we will be here with you and support you. Even if we're not with you personally, our hearts are all with you right now. So I hope that today goes a little easier for you than it normally would because of the support that you have from this community. Again, there's not much else I can say. It's a horrible, horrible thing. I can just give you the comfort of knowing that every one of us, there's people that have been through this with you, the same type of thing. They understand it. If you need to reach out to somebody and talk to somebody, there's a lot of us here that you can do that with. And nobody's going to turn away from you. So just know that we love and appreciate you, and we're here with you today. And I hope, like I said, I really hope that this makes today a little easier for you. Thank you all for supporting that as well. You guys are amazing. I didn't even have to say it, finish it, and you guys were doing it. So that says a lot to me. Thank you. All of you guys are beautiful people. I always say, welcome, Peaky. Good to see you today. Kathy Tolan, welcome back. Come on in, everybody. Grab your coffee. Again, these two cases are pretty horrific, considering how they went down. The first one, the main one, is the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. They found 3 young girls dead within the Girl Scout camp in Oklahoma. And that story is just crazy to me. Unbelievable. And if we have the ability to get through it, depending on the time constraint and stuff like that, we're going to cover Adam Johnson's disappearance and then dismemberment. They found him murdered, and there was nothing leading to anything with that one. Once we end this show, we're just gonna be a few minutes probably, and then I'm gonna flip over and start the secondary show this afternoon about the University of Idaho situation and all the new documents and stuff that have come out, things that we're going to talk about within the Brian Koberger situation. So I appreciate you guys. If anybody is interested in that course, it may be a little bit of a different crowd in here, but it'll be okay. That's what we do. Anything to add thus far, Mama Bear?
Nope, not yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, la. 1 second, everyone. Okay, is it going to load? Of course it's going to load. There we go. Thank you. work? Yes. Okay. Wow, it's cooperating today. Your day started off and everything's going well, Mama Bear.
Yeah.
Good. Kids are good. You're good. Good.
Yep. Knock on wood. So far, so good.
Yeah, we definitely need to do that when we can. That's a fact. Great to hear that. Again, awesome, Chris. That's great to hear. You know what I'm talking about. Then for those of you that aren't, it's definitely wild, guys. So first and foremost, like I always try to do, I want to put a few of these posters out here to bring some awareness to some more of these people that we have missing that need to be home with their loved ones. I don't have too many this morning, but putting any out is very important. So yes, please, guys, you're welcome to jump on over to sit there with Mama Bear so she's not so lonely. We're both together in here. We can see on both sides. So you're welcome to do that too. Just most importantly, make sure to hit the like button over there, share it, make sure you're subscribed, and hit that notification bell. Because Mama Bear, she smells better than me, I promise. So you guys can hang out with her if you want. No worries. She likes company too. Thank you guys for supporting both of us like this. We really do appreciate you guys so very much.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Peaky. Yes, I appreciate. We both do appreciate that very much so. Mama Bear didn't get as lucky as I did to have all you awesome people come in here because she had to work and do this and do that, and she didn't get to run her channel like she did. But we're gonna make that change. We're gonna make sure that changes, and whether she likes it or not, we're gonna grow this channel and get this thing moving. So. All right, guys. First and foremost, to start today, we have Shauna Marie Swan, 16 years old, unknown height and weight. Her hair is blonde with green tips, brown eyes, and she has piercings in her septum and the side of her nose. She was last seen February 16th of this year in Chesterfield, Virginia. She was last seen wearing a dark blue hoodie, gray pajama pants, black and white Converse shoes, and she requires medication and may be in need of medical attention at this time. If anybody has any information on the location and whereabouts of Miss Shauna Marie Swan, please contact the Chesterfield County Police Department at 804-748-1251. Thank you, guys. Okay. Next up, we have Zephora Castro, 32 years old, 5'4", 230 pounds, dark brown hair and brown eyes. Zephora was last seen February 28th of 2025 at 10 p.m. by her boyfriend at her home in the 1500 block of West Erie Avenue in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was last seen wearing a red sweatshirt, navy blue tights, and flip-flops with socks. Guys, if anybody has any information about Zephora's whereabouts or what may have happened with her, please contact the Philadelphia Police Department Northwest Division at 215-686-3553. Again, thank you. Welcome, Karen E., Leslie, and Billy, my dear. Wonderful to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Karen E., wonderful to have you here. Let me see something here.
What is going
Okay, no, I didn't, but I'll throw this one up next.
I was just doing something and I saw it and I was like, oh, I need to throw that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, Arctic doing the amazing things that he does. Put this one out. I didn't even know this was here. Sabrina does that. Okay, I'll let him explain it. 1 second.
on, guys? This is Arctic Fox. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to be taking a look at the missing persons case of 17-year-old Sabrina Dazat. Now, Sabrina is the niece of a friend of mine, and she's been missing since the 2nd of March.
Oh.
Today's the 7th, so she's been missing for 5 days as of right now. She had been living in foster care due to abuse by her uncle and her stepdad. And, I mean, it's typical Missouri stuff that we see all the time. Her mother's sister and husband did take in a few of the kids because the mother was in no condition to care for them. Father was in the same situation. And while in the sister's care, Sabrina would be assaulted by the sister's RSO husband, who abused Sabrina, and she was taken into care. So she is missing out of the foster care system. And it's a possibility that Sabrina may have headed towards Springfield, Missouri. The family thinks that, you know, she is in danger because she's, they're not taking the case seriously. As far as the state of Missouri is concerned, Sabrina is just another runaway. And, this poor girl is just out there running scared. She was in state custody, most likely ran. She had been living in the Springfield, Missouri area prior, and she's from that area. And she may be trying to get in contact with her mom, Amanda, in Springfield. It's another state failure, guys. It's absolutely devastating. Now, I'm going to put up a picture of the monster that abused Sabrina on your screen, just so you know that he's a real piece of shit. His name is Russell Dean Hotel, and he is a level 3 sex offender, guys.
Oh.
So we absolutely need to make sure that we find Sabrina. She's already been through so much in her young life already, and I fear that she's in danger. Statistically speaking, runaways are at a higher risk of being trafficked or sold on the streets than, the standard abduction victim is, simply because they got to find a means to support themselves. And it pisses me off that these states get this little rubber stamp out each time someone over the age of 10 goes missing and stamp them as a runaway. And they don't take these cases seriously, and they don't try to find them. Why isn't there an Amber Alert out for Sabrina? They know her history. They know what she's already been through in her life, but yet there's no Amber Alert issued for this young lady. If you do have information on Sabrina or her whereabouts, please contact the Clare County Sheriff's Office. That number is 417-646-5822. In the meantime, what I need you to do is I need you to smash that like button. It helps get Sabrina's face into the YouTube algorithm. And the more people that see her, the better the chances are that someone will have spotted her and will come forward with information that helps reunite her with her loved ones. Also, share this out to your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram. It only takes a second of your time to do, but it can make all the difference in the world in bringing Sabrina home and making sure that she's safe. As always, guys, I do want to thank you so much for tuning in and watching. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Y'all be kind to one another out there, and I'll see you soon in the next one, guys.
Wow, that's very sad. Again, guys, thank you, Arctic. Great job as always on that. There's Arctic's link for those of you that do not have it by some chance. Please jump over, hit the like button on all of what he has done, especially this one here with Miss Sabrina. Share it out on all your social media platforms like he asked, please, and see if we can bring this young girl home to where she should be, and keep her out of danger's way, guys. That whole situation is just wrong. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mom Bear, for bringing that in. I appreciate that. I didn't even see that. One second, if I can make this work. Here we go. Okay, and it is definitely an urgent situation. So again, great job with that, Arctic. Thank you for putting that out, and hopefully it is seen by many, many people and something can happen. So there, again, is Arctic's link, guys. Jump over, click the like button on all of those. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit that notification bell, because Arctic is daily putting many, many, many things out on the missing and doing a great job with it, guys. So thank you again. All right. Let's see here. Next up, we had cooperate with me here, please, and thank you. There we go. Micah Humphreys, guys, missing out of Fairfax County, Virginia. Micah's 17 years old, 5 foot 4, 135 pounds, blonde hair and blue eyes. Last seen February 27th of this year. She was last seen wearing a black jacket, black sweatpants, and black and white Adidas shoes. Last seen again on February 27th in Fairfax County, Virginia, folks. If anybody has any knowledge as to Micah's whereabouts or anything with her situation, please contact the Fairfax County Police Department at 703-691-2233. Thank you, guys. Okay. Let me see here. I think this will be the last one for this morning. We have Tayan Bird, 16 years old, height 5'6", 130 pounds, black hair, brown eyes. Tayon was last seen March 2nd of 2025 in Virginia Beach, Virginia. He was last seen wearing a black Nike jacket, black sweatpants, and gray Jordan sneakers. He was also carrying a black backpack. If anybody has any knowledge as to Tayon's whereabouts, please contact the Virginia Beach Police Department at 757-385-5000. Thank you, guys. I appreciate them. Sorry, I don't have too many to put out this morning, but any of them are important. So please, if you will, thank you, Stormy, for that, guys. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell so you don't miss joining us every time we go live, guys. That is so true and very much appreciated. Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's get this moved out of here. All right, guys, thank you for that. Again, Karen E., good day to you. Welcome. Great to have you here. Making sure I have not missed anyone. No, I didn't. I don't believe so. Okay, good deal. And again, thank you guys for popping over there to help Mama Bear by clicking like to hers, subscribe, and notification bell as well, guys. I'm going to leave. Actually, you know what I'm going to do here? I have a good idea. I do get those from time to time. Not often, but sometimes. If it works, hold on. I am going to put Mama Bear's link here, and then I'm going to pin it in the chat. That way it stays there. You guys will always see it. We don't have to keep dropping it. All right. So if you haven't clicked it, please do. And make sure you hit the like. Or just jump on over and hang out with her over there if you want to. Yes, that's what I did. See, I do have ideas too. Took me about, 3 years to figure that out, but I did it. It's okay, SRB. It's good now. It should be pinned now, I think. Okay. Thank you guys so much. All right. Now let's get the move on here. Okay. One moment, everyone. One moment. Sorry, you guys. Things loading slowly. My apologies. Okay, here we go. All right. Can everybody see everything okay? And let me know, of course, how the audio works too, guys. Please and thank you. Welcome, Miss Wisdom. Good to see you. I hope you're doing good today. Appreciate you joining us today.
So far, so good.
Is your link pinned in the chat so you can see it there?
I don't think so. I don't think it'll let me do that on this side.
Oh, okay. Well, let me know if you guys can see it. If not, I will redo it. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but
yeah.
I hope you're being safe out there, Miss Wisdom. That she was putting out flyers. It's amazing. Good for you. Good stuff. All right, guys. Off we go. Again, if there's any issues with the audio, please let me know. Now, this is from 1977, so some of the video, you can see it already. It's probably not the greatest, but bear with it, please and thank you. If you guys need me to throw up captions or anything, just let me know. I have no issues with that whatsoever. Welcome, Phil. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us over on Mama Bear's side there. Thank you. Thank you, SRB.
Hiya, Phil.
Thank you guys for keeping her company and jumping over there. I appreciate that much. All right, on we go.
Started as a normal camping season at the 49-year-old Camp Scott near Locust Grove.
Her first thought was, what's this girl doing sleeping out here? As she got closer, she realized that the girl was not sleeping.
Despite the numbers and the expertise involved, searchers were unable to capture a suspect.
They would put the pictures of the three girls on the news. I'd ask my mom what happened, and basically it was the boogeyman story.
It is every parent's very worst nightmare, and we've been living it.
Camp Scott was a Girl Scout camp located about 2 miles south of Locust Grove, Oklahoma. Locust Grove is a very small town in Mayes County, very rural area.
Lori was our first child, so she is the child who brought us from a couple to being a family. She liked to read, and she liked to play outside, and she liked to play with her sisters and brother. The Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts come to schools and kind of recruit, and her other little friends were doing it.
Welcome, Matahari. Good to see you today. Guys, this footage was provided via a channel called Very Local. Did a great job with this. Here's the link if you guys want to check them out. Maybe like it, subscribe, check out some of the other stuff. They do great stuff over there. I appreciate them so much. There is the link again. Thank you so much. Yes, there are a bunch of different podcasts. This is a big story. I'm sure many of you have heard this one. It just really caught my attention. I thought, hey, we need to check this out too, being a cold case. Miss Tandy's in the house. Hello and welcome. I hope you're having a great day today, Miss Tandy. Thank you for joining us. The tomboy here, I don't think I saw her yet. If I didn't, I will. All right, on we go.
I think she enjoyed it. She was real excited about going to a camp. She wanted to go somewhere. She had never done that, and that seemed fun and exciting.
June 12th at Camp Scott was the beginning of another round of campers coming through.
100 Girl Scouts from Tulsa's Magic Empire Council arrived there Sunday afternoon for a week of outdoor fun.
Buses arrived, most of them from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
When we took Lori to the bus, it was harder than I thought it would be.
So wonderful to have you here today, Miss Paula. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and thank you so much for gracing us and joining us today. We appreciate you so much. Thank you.
I worried about the bus ride. Didn't want there to be a wreck. After I realized the time had gone by that they got there, I kind of quit worrying.
It was a hectic day with all the buses arriving. They were all arranged in what camps they were going to be in, what tents they were going to be in. There was a thunderstorm that night, and as you can imagine, the girls, they were all kind of wound up, and it was lights out at around 8 or 8:30. At around 1:30 in the morning on June 13th, Counselor Carla Wilhite was awoken by some noise, and as soon as Carla woke up, she heard a sound coming from the woods. She described the sound as a low guttural moaning type sound, a note between a foghorn and a bullfrog. She started walking down the path that led down to the main part of the camp. As she got a little closer to where the sound was coming from and shined the light in that direction, the sound stopped. She stood there for a minute, decided there was nothing to worry about, so she turned around and started going back to her tent. As soon as she did that, with the light not being shined in that direction anymore, the sound started back up. So she turned around a second time, started walking back that direction, and as she started walking and the flashlight shined that direction again, the sound stopped again. So this time, she decided it was probably some kind of animal, so she turned around and went back to her tent. And she said as she was falling asleep, she could still hear that sound. The next morning, Carla Wilhite woke up at about 6 o'clock in the morning and headed to take a shower down in the same direction where she heard the noise the night before. As she got close to the intersection of that trail and the main trail to the main part of the camp, she noticed some sleeping bags piled up at the base of a tree. As she got a little closer, she saw what appeared to be a girl laying beside the sleeping bags. As she got closer, she realized that the girl was not sleeping. The other counselors immediately started to do a head count of the girls in Kiowa camp. The counselor that went to tent number 8 realized that there were no girls in the tent. She also recognized that there were no sleeping bags on the beds. So she went running back and told the other counselors that tent number 8 was empty. All the other tents in the camp had 4 girls in them. Tent number 8 only had 3 girls. Lori Farmer ended up with 2 other girls, Michelle Gousset and Doris Milner, in the last tent in the Kiowa camp.
I certainly had no premonition that something horrible was going to happen. Bo said, I need for you to sit down so we can talk. And I said, I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to sit down. What is it? And he said, Lori died. And it was just so confusing. But the director of Girl Scouts, local director, had called Bo at the hospital and just told him that our daughter had died in the night. She did not tell us there were other children who had died or that it was murder.
Dawn on Monday, June 13th, a counselor found 3 small bodies, still in their sleeping bags, piled near the so-called Kiowa encampment, changing the mood from...
This is horrible too. You know, guys. I mean, they've made horror movies about stuff like this, and even back then, this was the late 70s. I mean, things weren't anywhere near, at least we don't think, as bad as they are now. Kids would go off to camp for, the summer per se, 2-3 months or a couple weeks or whatever, depending on which camp. You think your kids are safe. You hope that your kids are safe, and you never imagine that you're going to send your children off and get a phone call like this. This is just horrific to me. I mean, nowadays, no. There's camps. There's camps Caden could have went to, and I just didn't trust it because of Caden's issues, and I didn't think that he would be treated right, things like that. Never would I have thought something like this. And this was in, like I said, the late 70s, when things weren't as bad as they are now, and it's horrible. So horrible. I can't either. And it's sad that we can't. Well, some people still do this, but it's sad that you can't trust in places, and our kids have to be the ones that suffer to lose out on these things because of the way things are, Yeah, and that's why I was going to say next. Wisdom, she's right. This is why her name's Wisdom. A lot of these things weren't reported back then. We didn't have the internet, for one. And I seem to think that at some point in time, like mainstream media back then did not put out certain things on the news. We've seen that change a lot, guys. They won't nowadays. When there's a crime committed, they'll show bodies of people on the news now. Back then, that was like taboo. You don't do that, So I think a lot of things weren't put out per se, and you just didn't know. So that's very true, possibly too, that these things were going on and it just wasn't reported. So thank you, Wisdom. Very good point. Miss Karen says, this is so sad. I was going to say I bounced around in the 70s was luck, I guess. I think all of us had that too, had that luck. So kind of glad my older ones weren't into camps, because I would have been, agreed. Absolutely agreed. Especially seeing this. Bill, Auto effing assume you're also damn cute and probably cuddly too. Mama Bear's little beanie bears. Oh, okay. Thank you, Bill.
Happiness to horror.
3 young girls, ages 8, 9, and 10, were brutally beaten, attacked, and killed by an unknown assailant. The evidence strongly indicates that the girls were attacked while sleeping in their tent, were sexually assaulted, and were taken from the tent and left some distance away.
The victims were identified as 9-year-old Michelle Gousset of Broken Arrow.
Another thing that this too that made me wonder, there's 3 of them. Was this one person that did all of this? And did they do it all at the same time? One at a time? Was there more than one perpetrator? Blah, blah, blah. Things like that. You know what I mean? It made me wonder all those questions too. I'm a 60s baby and was very protected because my aunt was like, there you go. You can't go wrong there. Get a load of this. Stepsister and I traveled to Austria in 1977 by ourselves to see relatives we never met. Wow. Yeah, see, that's something that, not today. Not today. I wouldn't be comfortable with that. I'm glad that you made it safe and sound back too, Karen. That's amazing.
8-year-old Lori Farmer and 10-year-old Denise Milner, both of Tulsa.
Lori had been murdered with 2
Probably,
girls.
yes, sir.
Like I said, it is every parent's very worst nightmare, and we've been living it.
People of the tiny community of Locust Grove, through no fault of their own, are also suffering. That's because Locust Grove depends on tourism generated by the nearby Grand River. And ever since the murders, tourists have stayed away.
I was around 8 years old. At that time, I lived probably 7 or 8 miles from the scene. I can remember we couldn't go out and play as freely. It was on every news channel. Everybody, it was everywhere. Everybody was talking about it everywhere you went.
Officials quickly evacuated the other girls from Camp Scott by bus. Mays County Sheriff's officials and Highway Patrol troopers cordoned off the camp, and within hours, hundreds of other law enforcement officials converged on Camp Scott in search of clues and eventually a suspect.
When we arrive at a scene like that, or any scene, the first thing we want to do is get an overall view and kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. And I don't think any of them were prepared for, seeing a 8, 9, and 10-year-old girl in that condition.
Searchers were hampered by the tremendous size of the search area and dense brush and trees.
Just because of the brutality, the age of the children, it's always been a case that, at least for the OSBI, has always been one of our most high-profile cases. We believe Lori and Michelle were probably most likely killed in the tent, and that Denise was either carried or made to walk to the location where the bodies were found.
When Denise Miller was found, her hands were bound behind her back. They were bound with a combination of a small diameter white rope and tape.
It sort of is broken up into several different scenes. There were some items that were collected at the tent. There were some blood stains inside the tent, at the bodies. Of course, the bodies were there, their clothing items, their sleeping bag. There was a flashlight that had been modified.
It was one of those old square, like a 6-volt. They showed that the switch had been changed. Masking tape that was used around the front portion of the flashlight to hold on a kind of a black plastic.
Somebody noticed that in the black plastic, a pinhole had been made so that it appeared that it was done so that when you turn the flashlight on, just a small beam of light would be emitted rather than the full beam of light.
Beside the flashlight, there was newspaper stuffed up against the battery, like to keep it from rattling or moving around.
They determined it to be pages 5 through 12 of section C of the Tulsa World newspaper from April 17th, 1977. A mobile command post was set up there at the camp to coordinate everything. There were numerous different people looked at.
In reading the reports from OSBI and other reports, I counted one time 139 people that was actually interviewed and potential suspects in this case.
A local resident was squirrel hunting out on some property very close to the camp and came across a cave. Authorities went out to the location of this cave. Inside the cave, they found several different things. Of the most significance, they found a piece of newspaper and a roll of masking tape. The newspaper that was found in that cave turned out to be the front and back page of Section C of the Tulsa World newspaper, the April 17th, 1977 edition, which was the same section of newspaper that was found in the flashlight. An OSBI criminalist was able to fracture match the torn end on the masking tape to one of the torn ends of the masking tape that was on the flashlight. Among other items that were found were...
Yeah, I definitely feel that this is very, very possibly a premeditated situation, in my opinion, knowing they were coming to camp and being that it happened the day of, things like that. So yes, absolutely understood. And it very well premeditated, in my opinion, possibly.
Broken sunglasses in a beige vinyl case. When the camp counselors were interviewed, one of the counselors reported that she had some sunglasses missing from her tent. The sunglasses that were found in the cave belonged to her, and 2 photographs.
An appeal went out for help in identifying them. Officials soon learned that Locust Grove native Jean Leroy Hart might have developed the photographs while serving time at Granite Reformatory.
Jean Leroy Hart was a native of Locust Grove, Oklahoma. He had kind of violent sexual history. 4 years earlier, Jean Leroy Hart, who was very well known to Sheriff Weaver, escaped from the Mays County Jail and had been on the loose ever since. In 1966, Jean Leroy Hart abducted 2 pregnant women from the parking lot of a nightclub in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He had gotten out on parole for that one, but got sent back to prison on burglary charges.
You got his own admittance of kidnapping, raping, leaving for dead women. Jean Hart fit the characteristics of a serial rapist. Textbook.
In 1973, Jean Leroy Hart was transferred from the prison back to Mays County. When he got to the Mays County Jail, he promptly escaped from the jail. They were able to quickly apprehend him that time. They brought him back to the jail, and then he escaped again. When Jean Leroy Hart escaped from the Mays County Jail the second time, another inmate escaped with him, whose name was Larry Dry. Larry Dry was apprehended a short time later. He reported that while they were on the run, they would take a flashlight and cover it with plastic or paper or something and make a pinhole in it so that they could move around without a lot of light. Larry Dry also said that Jean Leroy Hart had poor eyesight, so while they were out, he seemed to always steal glasses. For 10 months, there was a manhunt that went on for Jean Leroy Hart.
Several law enforcement officials believe Hart is still in the Locust Grove area and that some of his friends may be providing him with food while he hides out.
On April 6, 1978, the OSBI was able to have a good idea of where he was actually at.
At 4:15 p.m. this afternoon, agents of the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation arrested Jean Leroy Hart at a rural residence in the Cookson Hills in southern Adair County.
Hart was brought in, escorted by 2 agents from the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. He will be kept here at the prison until preliminary hearings in Mays County, where the murder of the 3 Girl Scouts took place.
Jean Leroy Hart's preliminary hearing began this morning amidst tight security as a packed courtroom looked on and an overflow audience watched the proceedings on closed-circuit television in a nearby auditorium.
What's a truck? There was some talk and some push early on in the legal proceedings to have this case moved to a different venue other than being in Mays County, but ultimately that was shut down.
While Lori was certainly a victim, when it is a murder, the family are victims too.
I'm a little disappointed in the coverage and the fact that they continue to stop people on the street corner here in Hart's hometown and ask if they think he's guilty. And I don't think it's fair.
It became apparent to me early on that it seemed like the rights sort of favored the defendant and that we were excluded from rights. At a point in the trial, the district attorney asked us to come into his office, and he told us that the next day they were going to be showing the crime scene pictures, and he would like all the families to leave the room. And there was something about that that just didn't seem right to me. And I told him that we were not leaving the room. He could ask everybody else to leave the room. And I said, as a matter of fact, I would like to see those pictures now. And that was important for me to do. I gave birth to Lori. I knew everything about her life. I needed to know about her death.
The most interesting development of the day was the revelation from OSBI agent Arthur Linville that Hart's name first came up as a suspect on the day of the murders because the use of black tape and cord to bind the victims was similar to Hart's alleged attacks on 2 women in 1966.
It's such an emotional thing being over here because for 2 days we've gone over what happened to our child. And it's hard to sit in the courtroom with someone who might have done it.
The drama intensified somewhat today as Hart returned for the 4th day of the hearing. But even with the testimony of Larry Dry, the prosecution has yet to place Hart in the campground or firmly link him to the murders.
By all accounts, he was related to almost everybody around Locust Grove. So he was, regardless of what his past was that we know for sure about, or what he was suspected of, committing with the Girl Scouts, these people still stood behind him. From Gene Leroy Hart's perspective, the best place for him to have that trial was in Mays County.
Camp Director Barbara Day told Isaacs she had later learned of a note found by a camper earlier that spring, which supposedly contained a threat that 4 girls would be killed. Other witnesses told of a flap which had been cut from a tent the week before, and of an earlier burglary at the camp dining hall.
We found that before June 13th, there had many things happened that should have warranted more attention than they received. I wish that we had had a chance to note those things, because I would have never let Lori go to camp if I'd known there'd been those types of things happening there.
It was beginning to seem that Gene Leroy Hart's preliminary hearing might become a permanent fixture here at the Mays County Courthouse. But Special Judge Jess Clanton this morning took the unusual step of announcing that the hearing will come to an end, one way or another, by 1 week from today.
Within about 2 months of his trial ending, Gene Leroy Hart passed away of a heart attack in the workout yard at the prison.
I mean, it's obvious that he was acquitted of the charges. I really don't think I can go into that, because that thing just, yeah. All I can tell you is what the outcome was.
In 1989, we had sent a sample to the FBI. The FBI lab had just started doing DNA analysis in the late 80s. And so we sent one item, which was a semen stain from a pillowcase that was found inside Michelle Gousset's sleeping bag. The FBI lab got a partial profile from that using an old technology. From that, they were not able to exclude Gene Leroy Hart as being a contributor to that DNA. Did DNA analysis on many of those hairs. Most did not give us any DNA profile. One gave us a partial profile, and Gene Leroy Hart could not be excluded from that profile as well.
DNA just added more validity to the pile of what was already quite obvious. We have been able to exclude every suspect other than Gene Hart. And they did not have the information that I have and have shared with you just to this point. I believe it would have been a completely different outcome. But
as far as the OSBI goes and the evidence that we have, our belief is that Gene Leroy Hart committed the murders.
Bo and I had both felt he was involved some way. There was evidence really to support that. That last day of the trial when he was acquitted of all 3 murders, we did go to the cemetery, and I really said to Lori, I have failed. I have failed as a mom, and I want to do something else now in her memory. There's got to be something. And I knew that I wanted to help families as they were involved in the justice system. I began speaking at mostly any place anybody would listen. And most recently, we have passed Marsy's Law in Oklahoma, and I was very active in that campaign.
The camp is quieter now. The weeds have grown a little higher in some places. The Girl Scouts are all gone, but the memories remain.
I don't know if I will ever feel like it has just been one person, But I think that Bo and I feel the same, that it is basically solved. I have asked the OSBI to not close the case because there is always information coming in. And I will tell you, there are people right now, maybe watching this, who know something. And if there was ever a time to come forward, it is now.
Really sad situation, honestly, and just scary as all hell. And I feel so bad for these parents. Very, very bad. Hold on a minute here, guys. Okay, 1 minute here. I have more to this. One moment. I always try to give you guys, as much as I can. Sometimes we get doubled up on it, but that way it gets all the pieces of info out that sometimes they don't put out. We're going to go with this next one here.
A group of Girl Scouts from Oklahoma had traveled to Camp Scott, an overgrown campground tucked away close to the small town of Locust Grove, northeast of Tulsa. The camp had been run by Girl Scouts for almost 50 years, and it was tradition for the girls to spend 2 weeks camping there each year. The grounds of Camp Scott sprawled over more than 400 acres, including a creek where campers could paddle, swim, or canoe during the warmer months. The rest of the campgrounds were made up of thick native forest, with the main campsite situated in a small clearing. Because of the surrounding forest, campers reported that Camp Scott felt like an oasis away from the rest of the world. Despite the air of excitement surrounding the 1977 camping trip, 10-year-old Doris Milner had second thoughts in the days leading up to her departure. Two of her best friends had decided not to go on the trip, and Doris was worried that she would be lonely and feel homesick. To a 10-year-old, a 2-week stay away from home must have felt like an eternity, especially without having any friends to sit next to on the bus. Doris's mother tried to convince her that everything would be all right, promising her daughter that she would come to pick her up if she got too homesick. Michelle Hoffman was hoping to become a camp counselor. She'd been there enough times that it felt like home, but she had never forgotten the way she had felt the first time she camped there when she was only 9 years old. Now, Camp Scott had become routine to Michelle, and she was ready to help the next generation of Girl Scouts get settled in. When she arrived at the Girl Scout headquarters in Tulsa on June 12, 1977, she immediately noticed Doris Milner because it was obvious that Doris didn't share the same excitement as the rest of the girls. Michelle walked up to the younger girl and tried her best to be reassuring, offering for Doris to sit next to her on the bus so that they could ride to Camp Scott together. Doris agreed, and as the Girl Scouts lined up to board the bus, Doris followed right behind Michelle. She cheered up during the bus journey, joining in when the rest of the girls started singing camp songs. The campground was made up of different campsites called units, which were each named after a different Native American tribe. Every unit had space for one tent where a camp counselor slept, and up to 10 tents where the young campers would spend their nights. The tents were standard for Girl Scout camping trips, offering more protection from the elements than a typical tent because they were propped up on a wooden platform and surrounded by canvas walls on all 4 sides. Each tent had room for 4 campers, who slept on small wooden cots. The inside of the tent could be accessed by unzipping and rolling up any of the 4 walls. All of the Girl Scouts attending the camp had been assigned a tent to sleep in. Doris would only share with 2 other girls, Lori Farmer and Michelle Hughes. Michelle was 9 years old and Lori was only 8, making her the youngest girl to be attending the camping trip. There was meant to be a fourth girl named Kristen Chenoweth staying in their tent, but she was sick and unable to attend. As night fell, Doris was sitting inside Tent 8 with Michelle and Lori, feeling much more comfortable than she had that morning. Their tents had been pitched just in time to shelter them from a heavy rain outside, which was beginning to turn into a thunderstorm. To allow the counselors to watch over all of the campers, the girls' tents had been arranged in a kind of semicircle, curving away from the tents where the counselors slept. Out of all of the campers' tents, Tent 8 was furthest from the counselors' tent. It was also partially hidden from view by the shower blocks. When the campers were going to bed, multiple counselors checked in on the girls. One of those counselors was Michelle Hoffman, who wanted to make sure that Doris was okay. She found that all three girls had already fallen asleep, worn out by the day's events. Satisfied that Doris had made friends, Michelle returned to her own tent and went to sleep. None of the younger Girl Scouts had any idea about the strange events that had been taking place at Camp Scott for the past few months, leaving the counselors confused and uneasy. Multiple counselors had heard unusual noises in the deep woods, noises that they had never heard any kind of wild animal make before. One male counselor had returned to his tent to find that it had been violently slashed with a sharp object, and several campers reported that food and personal items had gone missing from their tents. Most of the incidents could be blamed on wild animals and the paranoia that comes with being alone in the woods at night. There had been some sightings of a strange man in the area, but because the man seemed polite and wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary, none of the camp staff had reported it. 4 days before the Girl Scout camp began, the camp's director, Richard Day, met a man walking about 4 miles from the camp. He didn't remember many of the man's characteristics, only that he had been much taller than average. The man had asked Richard where he could find a creek to fill up a bucket of water. Richard had given him directions and he went on his way. There was one incident that had shaken up Camp Scott more than any of the others, though. During a cadet training weekend, one of the older campers had returned to their tent and found that the bags had been rummaged through and all of the food was missing. Somebody had left a note in its place inside a now empty box of donuts, scrawled on multiple pages that had been torn out of a small notebook. On the papers, somebody had repeatedly written the words "kill" over the first 3 pages. The final page contained a more detailed message reading, quote, "We are on a mission to kill 3 girls in one tent." Michelle had been one of the campers present during that incident, and she had immediately taken the notes to show to the camp's director. Even though it was obvious that this particular crime had been committed by a human perpetrator, the director wrote it off as being a distasteful prank after multiple campers confessed that they had written the notes. On the night of June 12, 1977, the campers at Camp Scott had a broken night's sleep, waking up to strange noises coming from the woods. At 1:30 a.m., one of the camp counselors, Carla Wilhite, was woken up by a loud groaning sound that seemed to be coming from nearby. It wasn't the first time that Carla had been left unsettled by strange noises. Just a few weeks before, she had been sleeping in Camp Scott's staff house when she had suddenly woken up to a noise coming from right outside the door. She walked to the door and opened it, but there was nothing there. Assuming that another counselor must have been walking around outside, she got back into bed. Right as she was beginning to drift back to sleep, she heard the camp dog Sally growling and barking. Sally's behavior was what scared Carla because she knew that Sally never growled at campers or other members of Camp Scott's staff. The only thing that would get such a reaction from the well-trained dog was a wild animal or a stranger prowling around the grounds. Eventually, Sally settled down and Carla fell back asleep. Just like the last time she'd heard a noise at Camp Scott, Carla got up to investigate just after 1:30 a.m. on June 13th. She left her tent and looked around the campsite, trying to find the source of the noise, but she didn't see anything out of the ordinary. Several of the young Girl Scouts also heard the noise, but they quickly fell back to sleep. Finally, Carla had no choice but to go back to bed, deciding that the noises must have been made by a wildcat or a hungry bear. Only 30 minutes later, another one of the campers woke up to the sound of somebody unzipping the tent flaps and noticed that the person opening the tent was waving around a flashlight. Some of the girls saw a man wandering around outside, but when they shone their flashlights toward him, he walked away. They weren't able to see his face, and he didn't acknowledge them at all. The girls were confused but not scared, and they quickly went back to sleep. Approximately 1 hour later, a different camper woke up to the sound of screaming. Although it was hard to tell during the night, and the camper never got out of the tent to investigate, the screams seemed to be coming from the outskirts of the campsite, in the direction of Tent 8. A third camper heard the same screaming, as well as a young girl's distressed voice crying out, quote, "Mama, Mama, Mama." None of the counselors heard the screams or the girl's voice, and because the campers were young and alone in the dark, they didn't know what to do. They thought that maybe one of the girls had a nightmare or was feeling homesick. After a while, the screaming stopped and the campers went back to sleep. The next morning, Carla woke up at about 6 a.m. and headed toward the shower block. When she glanced past the showers, she saw something out of place. A sleeping bag outside of a tent with somebody sprawled on top of it. It was quickly clear to Carla that the young girl on top of the sleeping bag was no longer alive. She was covered in blood from a severe beating, leaving her almost unrecognizable. Carla had just discovered the body of Doris Milner, the same 10-year-old girl who had been reluctant to come on the camping trip in the first place.
That was one of my big questions too, Cassie. Other campers heard it, but no counselors heard it. I don't know. It's a very good question, in my opinion. How? You know what I'm saying? Just curious.
Confused, half asleep, and suddenly terrified, Carla ran for help. She found the camp's nurse and one of the directors of the camp, telling them that they needed to come with her immediately. Carla later recalled the reality of the situation only truly sunk in when she returned to the body. The nurse initially believed that Carla was overreacting and one of the girls had simply been injured, but when she arrived at Doris's body, she realized that Carla's panic was justified. Carla and the other counselors began searching the tents and quickly discovered that one was completely empty and the inside was smeared with blood. One of the girls who had slept in Tent 8 was now deceased, dumped in her sleeping bag in the woods, and the other two girls in their sleeping bags were nowhere to be seen. The search had only been underway for a couple of minutes when the counselors discovered the bodies of the remaining two campers lying on the trail that ran between Tent 8 and the showers. The girls had been stuffed inside the sleeping bags out of sight after being bludgeoned to death. The annual camping trip was quickly brought to a close. The camp director immediately began to send the young campers back onto the bus, simultaneously attempting to minimize groups of children from contaminating the crime scene. After being evacuated that day, the camp was closed permanently. This was the last camping trip that would be held at Camp Scott. During the autopsies, the medical examiner found that all three of the young victims had been sexually assaulted before their deaths. Even though all three girls had been severely beaten during the assault, they didn't have the same cause of death. Both 8-year-old Lori and 9-year-old Michelle had died from blunt force trauma, but 10-year-old Doris had been asphyxiated by strangulation. Examination of the forensic evidence found inside the tent showed that the entire attack had taken place inside Tent 8, after the unknown assailant unzipped the tent flaps and climbed inside. The brutal sexual assault and bludgeoning of all three girls had left Tent 8 soaked in blood. It was only afterwards that the girls...
Trigger warning. Trigger warning. Content may include sensitive or violent content not suitable for all viewers. Feel free to step out if needed.
Just in case, guys.
In their sleeping bags were moved outside, then dumped in a location where Carla later discovered their bodies. The blood-soaked tent provided a key piece of physical evidence. There had been so much blood that the attacker had been unable to avoid touching the wet surfaces and leaving prints behind. Even though the smudge patterns in the blood suggested the killer tried to clean up after themselves, it would have been almost impossible to completely wipe away the evidence in the pitch black of Camp Scott, even with the light from a flashlight. The day after the murders, the wooden floor of the tent was carefully removed from Camp Scott and airlifted to a crime lab where it could be analyzed. From the bloodstains, investigators discovered a nearly perfect bloody footprint from somebody who wore a size 9.5 men's shoe. Investigators wanted to keep that discovery a secret, but against their wishes, the press were informed, and it quickly became common knowledge that a shoe print had been found. Despite the killer clearly trying to remove some of the physical evidence, he had left plenty behind at the scene of the crime. On top of the girls' bodies, he had left behind a red flashlight that he had used to find his way around the campsite. There was even a fingerprint left on the flashlight's lens, but forensic analysis found that it had been smudged too much to be used. The flashlight also showed that it had not been a spontaneous crime. The killer had been well prepared, even padding the batteries with pieces of newspaper so that they wouldn't rattle while he walked. As the radius of the search expanded to cover more of Camp Scott's 400 acres, more physical evidence was uncovered. Investigators found a length of rope and some duct tape, which had likely been used to restrain the girls during the attack. They also found an abandoned pair of women's glasses. When the search led investigators to a small cave close to the campsite, it was clear that somebody had been living there for a period of time, hiding away from the camp officials. The cave contained several newspapers, which matched the text from the scrunched up pieces of paper that had been wrapped around the flashlight's batteries. Whoever killed the 3 girls had been living in the cave while he prepared to carry out the crime, but it seemed as if the killer knew that the police would eventually find his lair. He had even written a message for them on the wall of the cave that read, quote, "The killer was here. Bye-bye, fools," followed by the numbers 77-6-17, a date format that was commonly used in prisons. On June 15th, investigators made an announcement. They were flying in 2 highly trained tracking dogs nicknamed the Wonder Dogs from Pennsylvania to assist in the hunt for the killer. Shortly after their arrival, the Wonder Dogs led their handlers to a pond on a nearby property, but after the pond was drained, no further evidence was found. That same day, a rumor began circulating in the area that a member of the local Cherokee tribe had placed a curse on the dogs. The rumor would have been quickly discarded if one of the 2 dogs, a Rottweiler by the name of Butts, hadn't died of heat exhaustion one day later. The remaining Wonder Dog named Horace continued to assist in the investigation, but failed to uncover any more clues despite his owner making an announcement on June 19th telling the public that there would be a break in the case very soon. While Horace was being transported back home to Pennsylvania, the usually well-trained dog escaped and ran directly onto a busy road. He was hit by a car and died at the scene, fueling the rumors that some sort of curse had been placed on the dogs. Within 4 days, 2 dogs valued at more than $10,000 each had died suddenly, and the investigation was back where it started. With no eyewitnesses who could help them to identify the killer, police were left sifting through a list of men in the area who had criminal records including sexual violence. One name stood out to them: Gene Leroy Hart, a 33-year-old prison escapee who had been charged with kidnapping and raping 2 pregnant women. Despite the severity of his crimes, he had quickly been paroled, only to end up back behind bars when he was caught stealing. In 1973, Gene had managed to escape from prison and, 4 years later, he became the main suspect in this case. The key piece of evidence potentially linking Gene to the murders were 2 photographs located in the cave the killer had lived in. The photographs were mistakenly announced to have been found near the bodies, when in reality, the cave was around 2 miles or 3.2 kilometers away from the crime scene. Forensic analysis of the photographs found that they had both been developed by the same person during the period of time where Gene had worked at the Granite Reformatory's photo lab. However, the announcement that Gene was a suspect in the case based on only circumstantial evidence was met with public backlash. Gene was a member of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, the largest Cherokee tribe in the United States of America. Many people, especially Native Americans, believed that racial profiling and prejudice had led to the investigation focusing so strongly on Gene, but local law enforcement stuck to their guns and a large-scale manhunt was launched. The initial manhunt on June 24th involved hundreds of local volunteers surrounding a 4-mile area located near the camp. Some of the volunteers arrived drunk or under the influence of marijuana, resulting in police needing to place them under arrest before returning to the manhunt. After 2 days, the effort was disbanded. For months, there was no success. It seemed as if Gene had simply disappeared into thin air, but investigators didn't believe that Gene had left the area. In fact, they strongly suspected that he was still hiding out around Locust Grove, and that his family and friends may have been helping to hide him. The hunt for Gene began to rely on tips from members of the public. On April 6, 1978, almost a year after the girls were murdered, a useful tip came into the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. It wasn't the first time somebody had called in a tip that seemed promising, and investigators didn't want to get their hopes up when they arrived at the given address, which was a broken-down old shack located more than 40 miles or 65 kilometers from Camp Scott in the remote Cookson Hills. At 4:15 in the afternoon, a total of 8 agents stormed the property. It turned out to be the home of a local Cherokee medicine man, but sitting inside was the suspect they'd been searching for. Gene was immediately placed under arrest for suspected involvement in the murders. The sheriff even publicly stated that he was 1,000% certain that Gene was the killer. One thing that all 8 of the arresting officers noticed was that, when they arrested Gene, he had been wearing a distinctive pair of women's eyeglasses. That was a key detail from the 2 sexual assaults he had previously committed. During both crimes, the victims remembered that Gene had removed their eyeglasses and tried them on. That made one of the pieces of evidence found at Camp Scott, the discarded pair of eyeglasses, seem even more significant. The media attention focused on the case had only just begun to die down in the years after the murders, but as the date of Gene's trial came closer, Oklahoma's interest in the case revived. There were 2 sides to the public interest in Gene's trial. Those who were convinced of Gene's guilt and wanted to see justice be served, and those who were convinced that he was the innocent victim of racial profiling by police. Both groups of people were invested in the outcome of the trial, but for completely different reasons. In 1979, 21 months after the last camping trip took place at Camp Scott, the trial began. Gene's supporters gathered outside wearing t-shirts that said, "Stop the Mays County Railroad," a reference to how they believed Gene was being used as a scapegoat by investigators. T-shirts that said, "Reporters and journalists descended on the courthouse where the trial was being held on the 3rd floor. Gene was represented by a local attorney, Garvin A. Isaacs, who had come highly recommended as an ex-public defender. Gene's supporters had raised the money to hire him. The first time that Garvin met his client, Gene immediately stated, quote, "I want you to know one thing. I didn't kill those Girl Scouts." For some reason, those words stuck with Garvin as being authentic. Later, he remembered that moment, stating, quote, "Those were the first words out of his mouth. I believed him when he said that." The prosecution's case against Gene depended on a large amount of physical evidence. The collection of items found at the cave where the killer had stayed, photographs that had been linked to Gene's previous job at a photo lab in prison, the men's shoe print left in the tent, and the samples of hair and semen that had been found at the crime scene. Today, this evidence might have told a different story. With modern DNA evidence, the killer could have been directly implicated, conclusively proving that Gene was or wasn't at the scene of the crime. But in 1979, forensic science was still 7 years away from the introduction of basic DNA evidence, and that meant that all of the prosecution's evidence was only circumstantial. The only thing that could have proved that Gene was the killer were eyewitness sightings or fingerprints, and the state had neither of these things. The flimsy evidence provided by the prosecution practically created defense attorney Garvin Isaacs' argument for him. He told the jury that the men's shoe print found at the crime scene wasn't the same size as Gene's, and that the hair samples couldn't provide a conclusive match to his client. The evidence that law enforcement had found in the cave provided the strongest link to Gene, but again, it was only circumstantial. Gene's criminal record and the fact that he lived nearby seemed to be the only reason he was viewed as a suspect, and those suspicions were far from being proof that he had carried out such a violent crime. The defense also suggested that another local criminal had been the perpetrator, a convicted rapist by the name of William Stevens. One of the Girl Scouts who had seen an unknown man walking around the campsite testified, examining the photo of William, saying, quote, "That looks like the man. We heard a noise and one of the girls lifted a tent flap and shined her flashlight in his face. He turned and glanced and walked away, but I didn't really see his face." One of William Stevens' friends, Joyce Payne, also testified, telling the jury that he had borrowed her flashlight for a fishing trip shortly before the murders, and she had never received it back. When Joyce was shown a picture of the red flashlight found near the girl's body, she said, quote, "That flashlight is my flashlight. It was given to me by my son." Joyce's son, Larry Payne, told the jury that he had seen William Stevens shortly after the murders and that William had been covered in claw marks along his forearms and neck. His boots had also been covered in what looked like blood, and he had requested to go to Larry's bathroom to clean them off. William's employer confirmed that he had been working in Florida around the time of the murders, and Larry eventually...
Welcome, CLK. Miss Kim from CLK Creations in the house. Thank you so much for joining us today, dear. Guys, go check out her channel too, if you will. That's her link right there. She does some really, really, really cool stuff over there. Very talented. And Easter's coming up, so is St. Patty's Day. So go get over there and get some ideas, guys. It's very, very good stuff. You won't be disappointed by any means.
recanted his statement. William died in 1984, so the question of his involvement is yet another mystery. Like several other violent offenders in the nearby area, William Stevens had been a suspect in the investigation, but after thorough questioning, investigators felt confident that he was not the killer, and they eliminated him as a suspect. The defense alleged that that decision had only been made because local law enforcement wanted to pin the crime on Gene. On March 20th, 1979, Gene Leroy Hart was officially acquitted after the jury unanimously decided that he was not guilty of the murders. The verdict came as a shock to many locals who had been...
No, absolutely, Peggy. This is Monsters. That's where this footage came from, guys. I put it up a little bit ago. And yes, this guy is amazing. I love the stuff he does. I love listening to him. He puts out great stuff. So, guys, go check it out. I put the link in here just a little bit ago. The channel's called This Is Monsters. He does really, really good stuff, guys. So please go check him out if you will. Karen, that will be right after, probably within an hour after I do this show.
Following the case, in their eyes, it seemed clear that Gene...
Whoa. Thank you. I'm sorry I haven't been around. I'm so sorry, Kim. Good Lord. My condolences and prayers to you and your family. I'm so sorry to hear that. You don't ever have to apologize for anything like that, please, or ever, just in general, but we understand. Real life always comes first, but that's horrible. I'm so sorry. I hope you guys are doing okay. If there's anything we can do, please let us know. Just reach out to any one of us, but you're part of the community here, and it's just as important in any way, shape, or form. So, again, my deepest condolences, my thoughts and prayers with all your family. I'm so sorry. That's so horrible. God bless.
Gene was the killer. For Gene's supporters, still protesting outside the courthouse, it felt as if their efforts had paid off. The families of the 3 Girl Scouts were devastated, and in an attempt to reassure them, prosecutors reminded the families that Gene was going back to prison regardless of the not guilty verdict. Gene had plenty of crimes that he had already been convicted of, 4 burglary charges as well as the kidnap and rape charges from his first arrest, and additional charges for his prison escape. He was returned to Oklahoma State Penitentiary, where he had only served 3 years of his 308-year sentence before his escape. Shortly after his return to the penitentiary, Gene was jogging in the prison's exercise yard when he collapsed. At 35 years old, he had suffered a serious heart attack and died. After his acquittal, the investigation seemed to slow and then stop. From very early on in the case, local law enforcement had been convinced they had found their killer. The public began to wonder if the sheriffs had been so focused on Gene that they'd made it easy for the real murderer to slip through their grasp and escape justice. The next break in the case came a decade after the trial, when the case was revisited using new technologies that allowed forensic testing of DNA samples. DNA testing of the semen found in the bodies of all 3 victims was carried out in 1989, and 3 out of the 5 tested samples showed a match to the DNA of Jean Leroy Hart. However, those results couldn't be used to conclusively show that he was the killer, because the remaining 2 samples showed an inconclusive result. Forensic experts believe that, statistically, 1 in around 7,700 DNA samples from Native Americans would have the same result as Jean. That meant that, while it was much more likely that Jean was the killer, it wasn't the kind of proof that would close the case. So the search for the killer of the Oklahoma Girl Scouts continued, and in 2008, more DNA testing was carried out. That time, forensic analysts took samples from stains that had been left on a pillowcase in Tent 8. But 30 years had passed since the crime, and the DNA samples had degraded too much to be used for creating a DNA profile. Another 10 years passed, and DNA technology continued to become more and more advanced. The rest of the world had moved on from the fascination with the 3 Girl Scouts murdered in Oklahoma, but Mays County never did. Mays County's new sheriff, Mike Reed, had grown up in the area, and when the Girl Scouts were murdered, he'd been around the same age as the victims. Like any other local, he was familiar with the case. It had caused paranoia in families across the state. If their children weren't safe at a scout camp, where would they be? Now, as an adult, Mike had become the sheriff, and he was asked to take another look at the case that had scared and fascinated him as a child. 1 year later, he brought the case to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, a private nonprofit that is the largest child protective organization in the United States. At the NCMEC, a cold case board examined the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. The board was made up of 23 highly experienced professionals who were a mix of FBI profilers, behavioral analysts, and seasoned homicide investigators. They were the best of the best, working together to try to crack some of the country's most complicated unsolved homicides. The cold case board pored over every detail of the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders, the physical and circumstantial evidence, the time.
Actually, over the past couple of days, I've heard that too, Cap. I don't know how true it is, but I could see it happening. I definitely could see it happening, sir.
Line, the autopsy reports, the small amount of DNA evidence, and everything that law enforcement had ever discovered about Jean Leroy Hart. 1 month into the assessment, the 23 members of the board came to a unanimous agreement. Every single one of them believed, without a doubt, that Jean Leroy Hart was the killer. With that verdict, the NCMEC suggested that the next step would be further analysis of the DNA evidence, but it came with a hefty price tag, costing more than $30,000. The victims' families simply didn't have that kind of money lying around, and neither did the Mays County Sheriff's Office. But they weren't the only people invested in the case. Public fundraising efforts began in 2017, raising the $30,000 needed to carry out another round of DNA tests. The results of these tests have never been made available to the public, but in 2022, investigators revealed that, since 2019, they had access to DNA evidence that strongly suggested Jean Leroy Hart had been involved in the murders. In fact, the evidence was so strong that it was able to rule out every other person of interest or suspect in the case, leaving Jean as the one person who could have possibly been the killer. However, the sheriff's department would not make these DNA findings public knowledge unless the families of the 3 victims requested it. Mays County Sheriff Mike Reed gave a statement saying, quote, "Unless something new comes up, something brought to light that we're not aware of, I am convinced where I'm sitting of Hart's guilt and involvement in this case." In 2022, Hulu released a docuseries about the crime called Keeper of the Ashes, the Oklahoma Girl Scout Murders. The host of the series was Kristen Chenoweth, the girl who had meant to be the 4th camper sleeping in Tent 8 that night. Kristen had grown up to have a successful career as an actress and singer, but she had never managed to escape from the what-ifs that haunted her. There was no reason for her to believe that she would have become Tent 8's only survivor.
Yeah, I didn't know if you guys realized that she was one of the kids that was supposed to be in there when this all happened. Right. It's pretty wild knowing who. I mean, she's a great actress. I think it's Deck the Halls. It's a Christmas movie she did with Danny DeVito. I loved her in it. She's a very great actress, beautiful voice. She's a great singer too. But anyway, knowing that she was one of the ones that, like, that's just wild. If you can only imagine what went through her head, like, she wouldn't be here right now. You know what I mean? It's just so crazy to me. Definitely wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I just, like I said, I didn't know if a lot of you guys knew that. Cap, yes, she's very pretty. I do agree, very much so. Yeah, her voice is beautiful. She sang, I can't remember what song it was in that movie, but it's just beautiful voice. So anyway, again,
Deck the Halls.
Was it? I think it was Deck the Halls, the one with Danny DeVito where he puts up all the Christmas lights.
That's what I'm saying. The song, wouldn't it be Deck the Halls?
No, it was. I think it was. No, it was. I think it was Oh Holy Night. I think that's the one. And she's funny too. She's very funny. So sorry to interrupt, guys.
If she hadn't been ill and unable to attend the camp, she believed she would have met the same fate as Lori, Michelle, and Doris. At one point during the docuseries, Kristen reflects on the murders, saying, quote, "This happened. There's no closure. There's no pretty red bow at the end." And for the people who are still mourning the 3 girls, that statement holds true. For the victims' families, the unreleased results of the DNA provided some of the closure they needed, reassuring them that one man who was likely involved in killing those little girls was gone for good. But officially, Jean Leroy Hart has never been named as the killer. That's also coupled with some unanswered questions that may lead to a second perpetrator. The shoe print, in blood, that was 2 sizes smaller than Jean's, and the testimony about who had possession of the red flashlight. At his trial,
I did find a new piece of information on this as I was sitting here that might be quite interesting to this, guys. So I'm going to show that right after this. Nothing like this.
there was also testimony from a blood spatter expert who claimed more than one weapon had been used, likely by someone both right-handed and left-handed. Is it possible that Jean was able to subdue all 3 girls without one of them managing to get away? Sure, but it would have been much easier with 2 people. Jean may be in the ground, but it still is possible that a second killer has never been identified in the case. It's something we'll probably never know, and the case of the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders technically remains unsolved.
Okay. Again, guys, hold on a minute here. Thank you to This Is Monsters for putting that footage out there for us. Great job. I think his name is Giles, I think, that does the narrating on it. He does amazing stuff over there. I love it. I follow a lot of these other channels where I go to look for these things too. But this case, very sad because of, I have a feeling about Jean Hart, of course. But I've always thought there was a secondary person, at least. So, that being said, I want to show you guys something here that I was sitting here going through some of this other stuff that I just found. 1 second here. This came up 2 years ago. And then this other piece of it, this came out last year. I'm going to show this real fast. This is just news break information. So, and I don't know, I haven't seen anything put out by law enforcement. But let me show you these 2 news break things here real quick.
Murders have haunted Oklahomans for 45 years now, but investigators say newly done DNA testing by OSBI points to one killer.
It was 1977. 3 young campers, Lori Farmer, Michelle Gousset, and Denise Milner, were raped and murdered in Mays County. And even though a suspect was arrested and tried, he was also acquitted. And that has led to questions and wild conspiracy theories ever since.
Today we traveled to Oklahoma to follow up on one of the most gruesome murder cases in all of state history. And I think this case is even known across the country as being so horrible and violent.
Oh, it's a bad one. There's cases that linger all throughout time that people won't forget, and this is definitely one of them.
Yeah,
like three little girls.
Oops, I'm sorry. Hold on. I pulled the wrong link again, you guys. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Where did it go? This is another good piece of information, but now also the Cherokee Nation got involved in this, I think last year sometime, and they're taking a look at this as well. Hold on. I just saw it, or I just had the link. I don't understand how I grabbed the wrong one either. Hold on. Where is it at? This one here. There we go. This was released 2 years back. But this is interesting. And take it for what it is. It's still considered, weirdly, an unsolved case. Okay. It's still a cold case, but
thing that has ever happened to the town.
Think about, listen to this, and then make kind of like, process and see what you come up.
And what kind of
It's a case that has haunted Oklahoma for nearly 5 decades. Lori Farmer, Michelle Gousset, and Denise Milner were raped and murdered in Mays County in 1977.
As News 9's Reagan Ledbetter reports, DNA evidence in the Girl Scout murders is finally giving the victims' families answers.
9 years ago, Lori Farmer's parents sat down with Mays County Sheriff Mike Reed and asked him to take a new look at the case. They had no idea what he and OSBI agents would uncover.
The people in Locust Grove believe this is the worst thing that has ever happened to the town.
And what kind of a person would do something like that?
We obviously know that it's a person who doesn't belong to what we accept as the normal human race.
The Girl Scout murders are a story without an ending.
A request turned into a 9-year mission to find out the truth about what happened to the Girl Scouts who were raped and murdered at Camp Scott, and put an end to the hundreds of conspiracy theories. On June 12, 1977, 8-year-old Lori Farmer, 9-year-old Michelle Gousset, and 10-year-old Denise Milner set off for camp, but never came home. There was an arrest, a trial, and an acquittal. Sheriff Mike Reed grew up here in Mays County and was just a boy when the murders shocked the conscience of this small community. He never imagined years later he'd be the one asked to find answers.
And I give him my word that I didn't know what I could do, but I would look at it.
A year after Reed started looking at the case, he went to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Virginia, where 23 of the best homicide investigators, FBI behavioral analysts, and profilers in the world make up a cold case board. And they all spent a month independently combing through every document and every piece of evidence. Each and every one of them had come to the same conclusion. The only person to commit these murders was Jean Leroy Hart.
Those people who don't live in Oklahoma, don't have any thought about who it should be, arrived at the same conclusion that Mike already had.
Few people have more at stake in this case than Sherry Farmer, since her daughter Lori was one of those murdered. She finally let herself believe they would get to the truth when agents suggested Reed have some evidence retested for DNA. That testing would cost $30,000, money the sheriff's office.
Now, I want to point out, guys, this is another one of those amazing situations that we have come upon recently where new DNA, Othram, all this new DNA stuff is solving these cases that have been untouched, unable to be looked at, unable to be solved in 40, 50 years, guys. And it's happening again and again and again, which is a very amazing thing. All based on this DNA stuff. I'm telling you, it is the future for criminal cases, guys, and it's amazing. So I got to say I'm grateful for a lot of it, in a lot of senses. Just another one here
didn't have. But citizens in Mays County stepped up and raised every penny of it, and that evidence was tested in 2019. And the results have not been released until now.
There is not a piece of DNA that we've not been able to identify.
Reed says the DNA shows there's no other suspect it could be other than Hart, and eliminates every other suspect ever brought up. Hart was an escapee on the run when he was arrested for the murders in 1978 after a 10-month-long manhunt, but a jury found him not guilty in 1979. But DNA evidence was not available then. Plus, Reed's conclusions go far beyond DNA.
If there was absolutely no DNA, just the information that I know now that was not allowed to be showed to the jury, there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that Gene Hart is the person who committed these crimes.
The jury never heard that in 1966, Hart kidnapped 2 pregnant women at gunpoint, drove them to the middle of nowhere in Mays County, tied them up, raped them repeatedly, covered them in brush, and left them for dead.
Textbook serial rapist. You're convicted of that, and you're paroled in 2.5 years.
Now, that doesn't make sense to me that would never be brought up in the trial for him that he was acquitted of. How does that put it? I mean, you're a serial rapist per se. You've done this before. It's your MO. Why would that not be brought to the jury's attention? That makes no sense to me. Okay, that would have held this man. He would have been convicted, not acquitted, and that would have been done. It would have closed out this story for these families, because I looked into this too. There is nobody else. Now, there could have been another person that by the grace of God somehow, and for him, didn't leave any DNA behind or any of that. I doubt it. I truly believe that it was Gene Leroy Hart. That's who I think this was. End of story. But he never had to pay for this. He died, okay? But it wasn't via the justice system. So it didn't give justice to the families. In their minds, I'm sure they feel that they know who did it as much as any of the rest of us do. But it's still listed as an unsolved cold case, which bothers me. That's not right and fair for these families. They deserve to have that closure, that justice, end of story, period. This is who I think did it. I don't care what anybody says at this point. This is truly my thought on this. Somebody might think something else, but this to me tells me right there. I mean, nobody else around here. There's too many red flags that point directly to this man, period. You know what I mean? So even the premeditated side of it. He was where he was, the premeditated side to it is what I was trying to say. I said it too fast. Just saying. I mean, it all just fits like a glove in my opinion. And here we are. So.
And back out on the road.
Reed says he gets at least 1 phone call a month from someone saying they know who the killer is, and there are plenty of people going on social media spouting theories with no truth to them. Reed says one of the big myths people have bought into is there were 2 different knots used to tie up the girls, meaning 2 people were involved. But Reed says he's proven that to be false.
One is a single overhand knot. Bingo. Stick your finger up there. So if I attach that to that, now it is a single half hitch. The exact same pattern. Single overhand knot. Now it is a double half hitch. It's really not 2 different knots. It's the same exact pattern.
After all his research and going through the evidence over and over, he says he can disprove every wild theory out there with actual facts.
Point, yeah.
Except one thing, which is there may have been someone involved after the fact because of a bloody footprint found in one of the tents. But he believes it's logical to assume that was someone innocently walking into the scene.
They could have stepped in there and then realized, oh my gosh, I got blood on my shoes.
Going through our grief, there was a focus. And the focus was there will be justice for Lori and Michelle and Denise.
Reagan Ledbetter reporting tonight. Gene Leroy Hart died in prison about 2 months after being acquitted. He was serving time for the 1966 kidnapping and rape convictions, plus his escape.
Think about it. He was in prison serving time for, okay, it just doesn't make sense that they're not labeling him as this person. I just don't get it. So in my mind, it's solved. Gene Leroy Hart is the one that did this. That's how I feel. So I'm just going to go with that. I hope that the families get that closure that they deserve and justice in some senses in their minds. They deserve it so bad, you guys. They really do. And to have to sit here without having, legally titled that the case was closed, and they know who did it, that's just not fair in my opinion. Okay. Moving on. Mom Bear, do you have any thoughts on that case or anything at all?
No, I think pretty well covered it.
Had you heard of it before?
I didn't think so, but I think I did. It's just been a really long time.
It's been around for a long time, yes. And we've talked about so many different things. It's hard to keep them all
Seriously.
categorized. You know what I mean? I get that.
Because wasn't there a movie about that or
Oh,
something?
I think there was a couple. I think Lifetime made one, and then there was another. Yeah, there's been quite a few different things on this.
Yeah.
And considering the time that it has lapsed since it happened, I mean, that makes, you would think.
Yeah, it was kind of creepy sitting here and looking at the picture of like the Girl Scout tents, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I've been in one of those. This is not cool.
It took me when I first saw it, and obviously I wasn't a Girl Scout, and I was in the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts, but it took us back to, we have a camp here called Camp Chickagami. That's where all the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts would go for we would go for different camping trips. We would do the Winter Olympics there, all sorts of different things that we would do. And seeing that just took me back to like, God, that could have happened to the boys too. You know what I mean? And anywhere. It just weirds you out. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
What did I do now, Miss Tandy? What did he die from? What did he? I can't remember exactly what it was he passed from.
Somebody said heart attack.
I think he had a massive, it was a massive heart attack. He was 35.
Wow.
Well, look at what he's done.
Well,
think about it.
but-
Kind of karma, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he probably didn't take care of himself, obviously. I'm going to say there's probably some drugs in there somewhere, too.
Oh, most likely.
That's just my opinion, but you never know. Okay. On we go. Obviously, I'm funny. What did I do? Did I do something funny again? Karma. Yes, karma's real. That's fact. I mean, 100%. 100%. I don't know. Did I do something that I didn't realize I did, Mama Bear? They're saying I'm funny or something.
Not that I noticed. Not a Girl Scout.
Oh, well, no. Duh. Yeah. I guess that would sound funny.
I was like, huh?
No, I definitely wasn't a Girl Scout. Although, where did I read it at? I read a story, 2 stories actually. One led to the other about a girl that was allowed to become a Boy Scout. And then that led to another story of a boy that was allowed to become part of Brownies.
Yeah.
Does that sound right? Brownies? Okay.
Yeah, I have at least one friend, if not 2. I know one for sure. Her daughter is in or was in Boy Scouts. I don't know that she still is. But
Right. Because they did, everything had become politically correct and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
so,
it's not even that, in my opinion. Once I did Girl Scouts when, I was young.
Yeah.
So, and I had fun and learned lots of stuff. Now, when I went with my girls, we were bored out of our minds.
Mm-hmm.
They don't allow the Girl Scouts to do the things that the Boy Scouts do. The Girl Scouts is the cooking and, simple like tying knots and whittling or whatever it's called. but not, the other stuff that the Boy Scouts get to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to do craft time.
That
I
was
could have stayed
why.
home
Mm-hmm.
where it was warm instead of in this ice cold cabin in the middle of the woods and done crafts.
And that's the thing is, that's why the girl, it was a local story here. The girl that was allowed to become part of the Boy Scouts, that's why she wanted to do it. Because she liked doing that stuff. She liked building and tying knots and doing the derby races and all that kind of stuff that we did. So wanted to do that stuff. And, because of the way things were back in the 50s and the 40s, no, girls don't do those things and they can't do this and can't do that. And you have to wear a dress and you have to be this way. And come on, like, let people be people.
Yeah.
And so that's why they allowed her to do it. And she excelled from what the story said. She excelled in everything. She got all her patches. She hit Webelos, and patched out there. And then she went and crossed over into the Boy Scouts thing and blah, blah, blah. She was heading towards the Eagle Scout side of things, which a lot of boys don't even get to. And it's like, wow, see, and then you go back to, like you said, the Girl Scouts of America, and I'm not downing it. Don't take me for downing it, but they don't do all that stuff. And a lot of that stuff is
downing it.
I get it, but welcome, Darlene Clark. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Chris, for referring Darlene to us. We appreciate that. They sell Girl Scout cookies, which is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I love those. But what else do they do in Girl Scouts, you guys? They don't do the whole, from my understand, like we built a teepee out of wood and, sticks and stuff from the woods. We camped out in the woods, built fires and went fishing, cooked over an open fire, did all these fun things. Did the Girl Scouts do that?
No. Not the little bit of time we were there.
Right. I mean, that's just, I get it. I do. I get it. 100%. And then, of course, I don't know what brownies consists of. I don't know what the difference is there.
Brownies are really young.
Okay. That makes sense. Like we had the Cub
first
Scouts.
grade or something like that.
Okay. So it goes from brownies to like the Girl Scouts and all that. I get you.
Yeah. There's
do
different
craft.
levels. I don't know what they are. We weren't in there for very long because like when we would have meetings, it was inside doing book work and this and that. And it's like, no, this sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is not what I wanted them in here for. I wanted them to have like survival skills.
So do they actually do any kind of scouting whatsoever?
Not really.
That's what
Sold a lot of cookies
I think it's
in
that's
the
whole thing right
freezing
there.
cold.
It's them damn cookies. They want them cookies sold. They do crafts.
Me too, Darlene.
Do they do
And
crafts? So the Thin Mint. I love the Samoa ones with coconut, but yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, it's just if you're gonna label yourself as the Girl Scouts of America, just like they do the Boy Scouts of America, they should kind of run hand in hand, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Or make it. I can't
Just
think of
make
the word.
it scouts. Why does it have to be
Scout.
boy or
That's it.
girl?
There you go. Make it the Scouts. That way it can
You
be
have
both
a
ways.
male counselor and a female counselor to this group. You have a male and a female counselor to this group.
Mhm.
That way there's not guys with girls and there's not girls with guys. I mean, it's not rocket science, people.
No, it's really not a big deal. And you can learn things on both sides. Like in the Boy Scout stuff, because we had Cub Scouts. I think it was something called Tiger Scouts too. The wee little kids were Cub Scouts, and then it went from Cub Scouts to Boy Scouts to Eagle Scouts. Eagle Scouts were like,
Yeah, I got a cousin that's an Eagle Scout. He knows the scouts like good Lord.
they could build. It's like MacGyver times 3,000 or something. You know
Right.
what I mean? They know a lot. But anyway, yeah, and that's the same thing, I guess, with the Brownies, Girl Scouts, and all that stuff. And I'm sure there's a level, Eagle Scout level for the Girl Scouts, or there should be at least. But the thing is, Tiger Cubs, right, Darlene? We didn't do a whole lot. We did do, I should say, in the Boy Scouts, so like certain sewing things. They teach you how to sew your patches on your uniforms and stuff like that. And we did a lot of crafting stuff too. Like we built birdhouses, and we would build like toolboxes for our tools.
Right. And I can understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, in the Girl Scouts, if you're only giving them like one thing, there was a book, the Scout handbook that the boys had to go through, and the Cub Scouts and all that kind of stuff, the Weeblos handbook. I remember all that. But I truly we never did anything in line with the Girl Scouts of America, which I thought that was strange. I don't know. The whole thing just seems like it's been commercialized to an extent that it's not. The Derby cars, yeah, that was a big deal for us. I loved it.
Yeah, I don't think the Girl Scouts did any derby cars.
I don't believe they did either.
It was
I don't
just
think
the boys.
I dated a girl once that used to talk. She talked the same thing about. She was in Girl Scouts and said it was the dumbest thing she ever did. Because they didn't do anything. They should know how. Yes, I agree with SRB. How to build fires and pitch a tent and do this and do that and cook over an open fire. All that same kind of stuff. That's what scouting, in my opinion, is. They don't do that. So yeah, it should just. Mom Bear's right. It should just be scouting, the Scouts of America or something, and let them. What is that word? Like co-ed? Co-ed.
Yeah.
Let them all go together. There's parents there. There's scout leaders. They can watch things and keep things in line. 100%. You know what I mean? So yeah, I get that. That'd be a good thing for kids, I think, nowadays, and it would probably draw more kids in too if it was open more towards everybody instead of just being closed in and you can only do this. 4-H, yeah, we had that here too. The 4-H kids were awesome. The things they did with the animals and stuff, it's crazy. Survival in itself is it right there, Tandy. That's why people usually put their kids in Scouts, is to teach them how to respect the land and the woods and survival and all that stuff, 4-H club. My sister in 7th grade knew how to make a lamp and wire. Oh yeah, we did that once too. 4-H is more diverse. 4-H here was just animal care is all they did. Cows and goats and sheep, oh my, stuff like that. I never did the camping thing. My father kept at his shop helping with antique car restoration. Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that either, Cap. Don't get me wrong. I just thought it was so cool to be able to go out. We built that teepee thing, which was amazing. At least to me it was. And they showed us how we built it too, that old Native Americans would build fires inside those to stay warm. And you'd think that it would burn it down, you know what I mean? But the way you build it in the top, the way it's opened in the top, because it's actually open in the top, but it's only open to express things. Nothing could come into it the way it was made. And they would build a fire in the middle of there, excuse me, and all of it would vent. Okay. And nobody would get smoked out in there unless you wanted to, of course. And it would stay nice and warm in there. The heat didn't escape, just the smoke and stuff. It was really neat what we learned from that whole thing. And then we took it out and we went camping with it, and it was great. We built a fire inside of it. We lived off the land. We ate berries, and everybody had diarrhea and all that fun stuff. We went fishing and cooked a fish over an open fire. That was amazing to me. Of course, we had other stuff there to eat too, but I'd rather take a ride on a Pantera than a weekend. Oh, gotcha. Okay. I get it. You're not fond of camping. I get it. No worries.
I love camping. I'm done with school already.
24 hours after a man was found dismembered and identified by authorities, family members are sharing their heartbreak after learning their loved one was murdered. Good evening, everyone. I'm Karen Scullen. That is our top story tonight. Fox 9's Mary McGuire spoke with those close to Adam Johnson today and joins us live with their message for the public. Mary?
Well, Karen, today I spoke with the mother of Johnson's 4-year-old son. She asked that we simply refer to her as JoJo to protect her privacy and safety. She tells me she wants justice now and is asking for anyone with information on this case to come forward.
Behind the gruesome and shocking headlines is a man JoJo says was a valuable part of her family.
He would always, no matter what he was doing, he would always try and have fun.
She shared a young son with Adam Johnson. The 36-year-old man police have identified after discovering several severed body parts on Thursday morning in northeast Minneapolis.
How do you tell a 4-year-old?
JoJo says Johnson was a father of 3 and had struggled with homelessness and mental health issues.
It's something that he has struggled with his whole life.
She says his mental health played a role in his numerous run-ins with law enforcement, but doesn't think they had anything to do with his murder.
When he's not at his greatest, yeah, he, has gotten in trouble. I don't think his past had anything to do with what happened to him.
Her last communication with him was about a week ago.
He seemed fine, telling me I love you, and I'll talk to you ASAP.
Now JoJo must grapple with the horror of this crime and is left wondering what happened to her child's father and why.
I don't have words for the person or persons who did this.
Now, I did check in with Minneapolis police tonight, and they say since releasing the identity of Johnson, they have received many tips. Reporting live in Minneapolis, Mary McGuire, Fox 9.
All right, so there's that. Let's start off with. Sorry, guys.
Discovery in Minneapolis as police have located more remains belonging to a murder victim from last week. Thank you for joining us here at 5 o'clock. I'm Kelsey Carlson.
And I'm Amy Hockert. This latest discovery came early this morning along a popular trail. Our Paul Bloom joins us live tonight. So, Paul, this is about 3 miles away from where the first remains were found about 5 days ago.
Amy and Kelsey, clearly Minneapolis police have a disturbing murder mystery on their hands. Now, tonight they do know who the victim is, but at least publicly, they don't know who killed them, nor do they know the motivation after additional human remains, a grisly discovery on this park bench overlooking the Mississippi.
That is alarming.
For those out enjoying this picturesque corner of Minneapolis along the Mississippi, the crime scene tape, investigative teams, and word of another grisly discovery of human remains here proved unsettling.
I do a lot of biking and running on the trails around here, and I'm often near the river, so if there's remains, that's frightening to me.
Minneapolis police reported around 6:45 Tuesday morning additional human remains connected to the apparent murder and dismemberment of Adam Richard Johnson were found along West River Parkway, where it intersects with Franklin Avenue. Investigators paying particular attention to this park bench overlooking the river. Johnson, 36 years old and a father of 2 small children, according to this family GoFundMe page, was apparently killed in recent days. Other body parts of his found last week, several miles away in a pair of northeast Minneapolis locations. Friends and loved ones have told Fox 9 they are devastated by his gruesome death.
I don't have words for the person or persons who did this.
Investigators would not comment further on the discoveries days and miles apart after processing the parkway scene for several hours on Tuesday. Once they left the area, it appeared the bench and concrete slab beneath might still be stained with blood. Police have said dozens of tips have come through Crime Stoppers, encouraging anyone with information about what appears to be a horrific killing to contact authorities as the investigation progresses. Now, we got no confirmation from police today, but we did view some eyewitness photographs from earlier this morning when the crime scene was set up here, and you can clearly see human remains on that park bench. Just makes you consider that in this very public area, that those remains could not have been there all that long without being discovered sooner. Now, I did speak to Johnson's family and loved ones today. They are planning a memorial service this weekend for the father and son and friend who was killed here. They told us he did struggle over the years with drug abuse.
Yeah, I believe she either has cerebral palsy or MS or something, Cap, is what I decided from that, my understanding.
Homelessness and some other mental health issues. We're live in Minneapolis. Paul Bloom, Fox 9.
Oh, one moment. One moment, guys. For some reason, these other links don't work now. That was interesting. Huh. Okay. It's okay. That was weird. They worked this morning. It just keeps taking me now to the hockey player, Adam Johnson, that was killed, which is weird, but okay. I'll give you this next one. This is so weird to me. I've never had this happen. Sorry, guys. Hold on. One moment here.
News tonight, a disturbing case that has a lot of people talking. Dismembered body parts have been found in 4 different locations in Minneapolis over the last 3 weeks. No one has been arrested, and many are wondering who would commit such a crime. Lou Raguse spoke with a forensic psychologist today as we try and learn more. Lou?
Well, Randy, first of all, cases like this are extremely rare nationwide. Dr. Michael Thompson says that there are a few different reasons a killer would dismember a body. And in this case, he says the signs are pointing at aggression. When someone out for early morning exercise found a human head posed on a Minneapolis park bench, an already disturbing case took an even darker turn.
Yeah, it's very mocking.
Forensic psychologist Dr. Michael Thompson evaluates accused criminals in his practice. Based on the details we know so far in the death of 36-year-old Adam Richard Johnson, Thompson believes the killer most likely was someone who knew Johnson and killed him with rage.
Extreme rage, a great deal of emotion that both went into the killing, but then killing wasn't enough.
The victim's body parts were found scattered in 4 public locations, which Thompson believes is a sign the killer wanted to dehumanize and mock Johnson, even in death. Thompson says we shouldn't assume the killer is psychotic.
Not necessarily. The fact that the body parts were found in several different places, and at least we can infer that the head was posed, would lead me to believe that this is actually somebody who is somewhat organized, that is not suffering from an acute psychotic disturbance, but rather somebody who has the ability to at least reason out what they're doing.
In many dismemberment cases, the act is done to help hide the body and conceal the crime. Clearly, that is not what happened in Minneapolis. And Thompson says the fact body parts were scattered gives Minneapolis police more opportunities to solve the crime. Dr. Thompson says cases involving organized crime often involve posing a body to send a message, but there's absolutely nothing in Johnson's history to suggest any connection to organized crime.
You got to be a special kind of crazy to be out putting in public too, like posing a head on a park bench and putting the parts all over, the body parts everywhere. Like what? This one was crazy to me. Hold on, I just can't get these other links to work now. Hold on a minute. This one might. Come on. Please. Not gonna do it. I don't know why it stopped running them. It's crazy. Well, guys, there's an unsolved cold case. I believe it's from 21 for this Adam Johnson. The story links won't pop up. Let me see if it'll give me. I don't know if it's because the man was homeless that they didn't make it important. But it's kind of making me mad now that these links, I had 3 links that I could run and not any of them are working now. Hold on. Yeah, this is about it too. This is sad. I can't believe nobody else covered this either. No answers for the family of Adam Johnson 4 months after body parts were discovered. Fox 9, as leaves continue to change their colors, JoJo, who requested that to be identified as such to protect her privacy and safety, is still no closer to knowing who is responsible for the gruesome murder and dismemberment of her former boyfriend and why they did it. The dismembered parts of 36-year-old Adam were found in 4 separate locations across, we know this, from mid-June to early July. I don't have words and I don't know what to think about it. He was a human being, said JoJo, who shared a son with Johnson. I've literally played every scenario in my head. The FBI is now assisting in Minneapolis Police Department with investigation. No arrests have been made and a person of interest has not been publicly identified. We have nothing on this. In the 4 months since his murder, JoJo has learned some of the new information from investigators. She says the FBI found DNA under his fingernails that is being tested. And although Johnson struggled with addiction, a toxicology report, there's another reason right there why it's not made important, revealed that he was sober when he was killed. This was not gang related. This was not a drug cartel. This was somebody who knew him, said JoJo. But this very public crime was apparently not caught on camera. The surveillance camera at the Ukrainian Cultural Center where Johnson's body parts were initially found was not working. Perhaps most disturbing, JoJo says a word was carved into one of Johnson's body parts. All of that, combined with more graphic details about the condition of his remains, leads her to believe this was not spontaneous violence. They knew what they were doing. They knew how to do it, said JoJo. JoJo admits Adam could be obnoxious and thinks that if he needed money or a place to stay, he could have bugged the wrong person. But she doesn't want Johnson's name or his case to be forgotten and is speaking out now because she wants justice, both for Adam and his 2 sons. I drive myself crazy thinking about what happened to him and how it happened. But that's something that I have to think about because this is our reality, said JoJo. Meanwhile, Adam's family has been working with a private investigator, and Crime Stoppers of Minnesota is offering a $1,000 reward for anyone who has information that could lead to an arrest, and his family is also offering a $2,500 reward. A GoFundMe has been set up for the family. Guys, this was back in 2021, okay? There's nothing. I've looked into this a little bit. When I saw it, there's nothing. Nobody has anything. There's no clue as to who did this, which is why I wanted to bring this out, just to do a quick over on it. I got one of the other links to work, but it's nothing more than I've shown you. There's 2 other links that actually told this whole story like this, and they're dead now. I don't know why. I swear that they worked this morning. I don't know. This is weird. Let me see if this will work at least for you guys.
Escape to Grand Casino, where more upgrades, free play, perks, and points means more fun. Same play, better perks. Grand Casino.
His dismembered body was found in Minneapolis this summer, but the question remains tonight: who killed Adam Johnson? The FBI is now assisting the Minneapolis Police Department in this murder investigation.
But those close to the 36-year-old say more needs to be done to identify his killer and bring them to justice. Fox 9's Mary McGuire has the story.
This small memorial is the only physical reminder of a gruesome discovery that was made here 4 months ago. Adam Johnson's former girlfriend tells me she still doesn't have any answers, and not enough work is being done to solve his murder case.
We're here with nothing. We need something, anything.
As leaves continue to change colors, JoJo is still no closer to knowing who's responsible for the gruesome murder and dismemberment of her former boyfriend and why they did it.
So I've literally played every scenario in my head.
Johnson's dismembered body parts were discovered in 4 separate locations across Minneapolis from mid-June to early July. First, in 2 bags near the Ukrainian Cultural Center. Next, displayed on a park bench. And finally, in the Mississippi River.
I don't have words, and I don't want to think about it. He was a human being.
She's learned some information from investigators. DNA was found under his fingernails that's being tested. And although he struggled with addiction, a toxicology report revealed he was sober when he was killed.
This was not gang. This was not a drug cartel. This was somebody that knew him.
But this very public crime was apparently not caught on camera. The one at the Cultural Center wasn't working at the time.
It would have been a major break.
And perhaps the most disturbing, JoJo says a word was carved into one of Johnson's body parts. All of that, combined with more graphic details about the condition of his remains, leads her to believe this was not spontaneous violence.
They knew what they were doing. They knew how to do it.
JoJo admits Adam could be obnoxious and thinks if he needed money or a place to stay, he could have bugged the wrong person. She doesn't want Johnson's name and case to be forgotten and is speaking out now because she wants justice, both for Adam and for his 2 sons.
I drive myself crazy thinking about what happened to him and how it happened. But that's something that I have to think about, because this is our reality.
Reporting in Minneapolis, Mary McGuire, Fox 9.
Adam Johnson's family has worked with a private investigator. A $3,500 reward is being offered to anyone with information that could lead to an arrest in this case.
That's it, everybody. I'm going to come back on this one as soon as I can find anything about the investigation or anything on this. There's nothing. I've never seen a case like this. There's absolutely nothing. And again, this really kind of irritates me because I feel like it's because the man had a drug issue and he was homeless.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean you just ignore the fact and try not to solve the case. Sorry.
Right.
I just saw something. Yeah, Cap, we're going to be hitting up on that here shortly. I'm going to end it here in just a few. And we're going to move on to the second show, which is all about that stuff. We got a lot to talk about. 100%. So what do you think about that situation, Mama Bear, being that there's nothing to talk about with it?
It's wild.
Sad.
I've had one of the videos I did, Melissa Reynolds, is kind of like that. There's just nothing.
And that's why I brought his name out, because there was nothing on this. And even though I even Googled stuff, I went to Reddit, I went to think, there's nothing.
Yeah.
That's sad to me. That's just sad.
Very sad.
That poor woman, she seems, it's obvious she's handicapped. She has 2 children with this man. She's handling by herself. No answers to whether they were together or not. That's still the father of her children. She's not getting anything from this. There's nothing his family's getting. And again, he's a drug addict and he's homeless. So what? He doesn't matter. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, again, guys, we're all created from the same person. And no matter what lifestyle we're living or what's going on in our lives at that moment, doesn't mean we're less important. That bugged me. That's why I put this out. I wanted to put his name out, if nothing else, and show you, hey, there's somebody out there that was found dismembered, and it was done in a very, very, very weird way. And it's believed that the person knew him, which is even scarier to me.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know, you guys, but
Well, it's like this other one too. He was shot in the middle of broad daylight, but there's no witnesses, no nothing.
wow.
Yeah. I think it's because of the neighborhood area that it's in. Nobody wants to come forward.
See, that ain't cool either. I did get one of the links to finally work. I don't know what the hell that was about. Another little detail with this, the head that was found on the park bench for Adam was frozen when it was found. The killer preserved it before leaving it on a park bench.
What?
This to me, that's why I said, guys, it sounds like some kind of Hannibal Lecter weird serial killer stuff, okay? Yeah, it's wild. Here we go. It finally did it. I don't know why it wouldn't open before, but it did now. Family pleads for tips in Minneapolis dismemberment case. Adam Johnson's family confirms his head was frozen when found, meaning the killer preserved it before leaving it on a park bench. Mm-hmm. Let's see if this will play. Hopefully we won't have 35 commercials first. If it will play at all.
The first discovery of dismembered body parts happened the morning of June 17th, but the mystery actually began the night before.
What sounded more like a knock.
With a knock on a window.
Like boom, boom.
Boom, boom, smash.
I went outside with my dog and we kind of walked around the property.
This witness didn't find anyone that night.
Right.
But the next day, next door, someone found garbage bags filled with body parts. And just down the street behind the Ukrainian Community Center in Northeast Minneapolis, a woman found a leg cut into several pieces put on display. The victim was Adam Johnson, a 36-year-old man who, when sober, was a caring and doting father. But he struggled with deep drug and alcohol addiction, was recently homeless, and when high, was known to agitate and provoke others.
It's possible that he was harassing somebody at the time, if he needed a place to stay, if he needed money.
Johnson's murder has been difficult on his loved ones, but nothing harder than the way the killer apparently sent a message. The most offensive, coming 5 days later and 3.5 miles away from the first.
No, Miss Paula, they don't even have anybody as under suspicion for doing this. This is the problem with this one. Nothing. Sadly, but nothing.
First location. I spoke with a witness who walked past this park bench at 6:15 a.m. when this trail is busy with bikers and runners. At 6:15 a.m., he saw nothing on that bench. But just a half hour later, someone else found Adam Johnson's head. The victim's head put on display in broad daylight in a public location. His family says police told them it was frozen and the word perv was carved into the forehead.
He was a human being. Nobody deserves this.
Minneapolis police have stayed quiet since the final discovery of Johnson's torso in the Mississippi River. The FBI is now helping them. The family says they're testing DNA found under Johnson's fingernails. They're pleading for anyone with more info to come forward.
We need something, anything.
Lou Raguse, KARE 11 News.
Can you imagine walking through the park, Mama Bear, and just glancing over and seeing a head sitting on the park bench?
Nope. No.
And they carved the word perv into his forehead. They spread these things out. I think there's a meaning behind this too. The head was on the bench in the park. I think that means something because of where it was found. The torso being in the water, I think, meant something. And the other body parts where they were found, the specific locations, I think that has a meaning behind it.
Could be.
But nobody seems to get it at this point. And I don't know enough about him. I even tried to look in Wikipedia and stuff like this to figure, sometimes you can find things. I know it's not reliable, guys. Don't get me wrong. Just to find something out about him. There is nothing. Trying to get a backstory. I looked to see if he had some previous charges for maybe SAing anybody, if he was an RSO. There's nothing. And nothing. The perv, you would think somebody might do that because of something he may have done in his past. I don't know. Sorry, Tomboy. That's why this one perplexed me. And I thought, at least we need to put his name out here. And maybe down the road we can look into it. And I'm going to keep looking into it, obviously, when I have spare time, because it's driving me nuts. But there's nothing. Nobody did anything. No other creators that I've seen have done any stories on him or nothing, guys. So from my understanding, I'm the first person that has done this on YouTube, other than like news. Okay. So, and I'm not saying that for because look at what I did. Not that. I'm just saying it's sad because nobody else has done it. And it's a person. He's got kids. The mother of his kids is upset because there's no answers to this. Law enforcement has not one lead on this. Whoever
What was
did
his
this,
name again?
Adam, be careful because it'll take you directly to the hockey player that was killed. Adam Richard Johnson out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. You have to put that in to take it to the right one. And that's the only thing I could come to conclusion of, Tomboy. That's a good point. Maybe something happened where there were no charges filed. Maybe. If that's the case, okay. Where's it at? Somebody had to tell the story. Why didn't they press charges? What's the deal with that if that's the case? I don't know, but it's bugged me since I first saw it. I'm like, I'm going to put it out today with this Oklahoma thing because there's nothing to it. It took no time to do. So it was in Minnesota, Tomboy. Yes, out of Minneapolis is where he was from. So I'm going to keep looking into it when I get some time, little by little, seeing if I can pull anything on it. But this was just crazy to me. I feel so bad for her. Like I said, she's wheelchair bound. She's got, like I said, I don't know exactly what it is. Of course, that's not our business. But she's raising his kids by herself. There's no help. And this is what she's doing. And she has no answers to this. And what is she supposed to tell his sons? Your dad, yes, is deceased. And they grow up hearing the stories about how he was found. That's horrible too. So there should be some kind of answers to this. Anyway, hey, Critical, good to see you. If there's in the future something that comes up, of course, I'm going to put it out because it's important, I think, for people to see. There's answers to this one, but it's just sad to me that there are none. Another family that has no answers to go on. His kids have nothing to know about their dad other than what was before, of course. But right, yeah, it's a good point. 50% go completely unsolved with nothing, and it's just it is. I guess it's not shocking, but it's sad. Whoever did what they did, they knew exactly how to do it. What they were doing without leaving any kind of DNA or anything, because nobody has been suspected of this. Not one person, not even a teeny little piece of information to go towards somebody. Nothing. So whoever did it, they hid it very well, sadly. And I'm hoping that somewhere down the line something will happen. And like I said, the fact that the body parts, or at least the head, was preserved, that's real creepy. Very creepy. Do we still have peeps here? I think so.
Well, I don't know about on my side.
Mama Bear has.
Peggy's still here.
I have
it don't show me.
I can see up in the left-hand corner. There's like
I
a
can
little
see how
eye
long we've been on here, but that's all it shows me.
right next to it. It's 2:37. It says 36, and then next to it, there's like a little eye. If you put your arrow on it, it says.
No, I don't have that.
Oh, okay. Well, I have 20. Mama Bear has 4 or 5.
Yay.
At least there's peeps over there.
Yeah.
Thank you, CLK. Anybody have any comments about this or does anybody know about this before I brought it up at all? I'm just curious. Had you ever heard about it or anything?
I certainly hadn't.
I fell on this one watching a, sometimes on YouTube, they'll put out the 5 unsolved cases in this place or that place, and it was lobbed in with 4 other cases out of Minnesota. And I was like, oh, so I watched it. I'm like, wait, what? And never heard of it before. Most people haven't because there's nothing that's been put out on it. It's really sad. Uh-oh. That's quite ducky. What am I looking at here there, Tomboy? Tomboy's got, I think they're ducks. Oh, you have a duck issue. Yes, you do have a duck issue, for sure. I don't know. I think she's got a duck issue. What do you think there, Mama Bear?
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You think she's got possibly a duck issue?
Maybe a little one.
I didn't know that many types of ducks existed, Tomboy.
Really? Haven't you seen the people with the Jeeps with all the ducks? Oh my goodness.
I mean, yeah, I've seen that because Shane, Junie's dad, he's got one on his dashboard. He's a Jeep owner. So
I've seen him with Jeeps full of ducks. It's bonkers.
I don't know what that means, but Target dollar section. Aha. Well, there's a Santa duck, and I'm surprised you don't have a pet duck, like a real one. Miss Tandy said she painted that picture. That's pretty. You did a good job. Very good job.
Good.
Mm-hmm. I like your tree. Did you learn how to paint happy little trees from Bob Ross? Candy needs to do that prank where you get like 1,000 ducks and put them all over the. That would be funny. Yes. The Pooh Bear was the one I just got today. You have a Pooh Bear. Oh, that. Hold on. Yep, that's another duck too.
Aww.
It's a Pooh duck.
Pooh duck.
It's a Pooh duck. Pooh duck. Cute. All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for today's Cold Case and Coffee. Thank you guys for joining. Like I said, just give me a few. I'm going to get off here, go do something, and I'm going to load the other situation in, and we're going to come back, and we're going on a little trip to Idaho. We haven't been there in a while, but there's so many things to talk about, so I hope to have you guys back, and then some. Share it out that's what we're going to be talking about. I'll set it up immediately almost. And I'm going to give a little bit of time because I think Doodle's going to be going live here.
Sorry.
About 15 minutes. So I'll give that so that nobody has to miss that. They would be interested in being here. So yes, thank you guys all for joining us today. So guys, give it about roughly an hour and we'll be right back. Okay. That way Mama Bear can do things she's got to do and I can do my household stuff, and my granddaughter's here too. And Doodle can have her live stream and everybody can go support that as well. Don't have to worry about being in both places or either or. So but that'll do it. Mama Bear, thank you for joining me as always. I appreciate you very much. I hope to see you here when we come live here again. And again, if Mama Bear is here, guys, we're going to be dual streaming again. I'll be dropping her link like always. Also, Mama Bear's link should be posted. I don't know what I just said. Posted. Posted in the chat. And it is pinned there. So if you have not yet, jump over there real quick. If you will, please. If you haven't, click the like button. subscribed and hit the notification bell, please do that. It's pinned at the top of our chat here. Before we leave, make sure you do that if you would, please. I'd appreciate it. So would she. When we come back, we'll be doing this again together. We'll be looking into all the weird and crazy things going on over in Idaho, as it has been, with new documents, new situations, new stuff to look at, the 911 pieces of the 911 call, text messages, and just conversation about what we think is going on and what it seems to be. For those of you that are down for it, let's do it. Anyway, guys, don't forget to love yourselves and love each other. Oh, it's okay, SRB. I know you'll be here. And don't change a thing. You guys are the beautiful people. Thanks again for tuning in today. We love you guys so very much. You guys are all so very much appreciated. For those of you that may not pop back in, we love you, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day, folks, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. See you soon.